And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete live stream here on YouTube. I'm Ricky Hampton with my friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Wednesday evening. Hope everybody's having a good time. Frat brother, it's good to see you, man. I was on the DL for a minute, but I just got called back up and I'm ready to rock and roll. Uh, we got a lot going on, man. We got to get to in this hour. But first and foremost, how you doing, brother?
Doing all right. Trying to get stuff set up. We got the big football game at Howard, so I'm trying to iron out the details for that. See if I can get credentialed for that. That's a big deal. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, and I'll definitely let you know because we're attached to it. And then other sports stuff going on. We've got football coming up, college football coming up soon, so I'll be doing that.
You got games Saturday. Got games this weekend.
Right, exactly. And then you got still got soccer going on, so stuff like that. But of course, this is all paling to the announcement that happened out here in the Bay Area that we'll be talking about throughout probably most of the show, and possibly even tomorrow with our great booster himself, Matt Calvin.
Yeah, the passing of Al Adams. He passed away today, age 87. Led the Golden State Warriors he was the coach of the Golden State Warriors when they won in 1975. That was the team. Rick Barry was on that team. Was Jamal Wilkes on that team?
Yep, he was a rookie. He's a rookie. And he was Keith Wilkes there. So Keith
Wilkes was drafted by the Lakers.
No, he's drafted by the Warriors. Keith Wilkes got that Rookie of the Year also and got the championship, and then eventually headed down south to L.A. and won with the fast-breaking Lakers and Showtime. But yeah,
what I always think about when I think of Jamal Wilkes.
Yeah, Cornbread Earl and me. I was a kid. See, and that's the thing about it is that I was going to get two of our frat brothers on, but they had meetings, so that they were busy. But they were youngsters out here in the Bay around that time, because that came out around that time because it was when Jamal had just left. Well, he wasn't Jamal. When Keith Wilkes had just left the UCLA, and they filmed a movie with a young Lawrence Fishburne. So Lawrence Fishburne, he was in there, and then I watched it again and realized that Marcus Johnson was in the movie.
Wow.
Marcus Johnson was in the movie. Of course, they were teammates.
Well, Marcus Johnson you see him, he was in, what was it?
White Man Can't Jump.
And he was funny in that, too.
Oh, he was hilarious. I mean, I almost got kicked out the theater because I was like, I think I was in Pennsylvania at the time, and I was at the theater and watching this, and I said, "Oh my God, it's Marcus Johnson!" Everybody's looking at me because I didn't realize that was him, going crazy like that, going to get the gun and all that stuff. So, but yeah, and then I finally met Marcus at a Warrior game. Well, Bucks were out here, and it was so cool to finally meet him because growing up with Marcus, Sidney, and all those guys, so that was cool. But but I was saying that our two frat brothers, Ali and Terrence, of course, been on our show several times. They were youngsters back then, and and I was wondering what the impact was on them, but they were preoccupied, so they couldn't come on.
You say he was Keith Wilkes on that movie?
Yeah, he was Keith Wilkes.
Well, but he wasn't even in the movie that long, right?
Who? He got killed. He got killed. I don't want to give the plot away if somebody hasn't seen this movie, but
if you ain't seen it,
but yeah, he was, and the rest of the movie is the investigation about what happened. How did he get killed? Right. And then, he was like running down the street with his soda pop, and then the little kid that was like envying him was Lawrence Fishburne. He was Larry Fishburne back then. Then he got blind and said, "Call me Lawrence."
Well, I did not know that.
Yeah. And so here's the thing about it. If you were a kid around that time, it was like, this is when a lot of the blaxploitation movies were out and all that. So I remember all that, and then it was a double feature with this movie in my town, at least in Racine. It was Cornbread Earl and Me and Cooley High.
Oh,
just black theater excellence right there. It was
tell me this now. When you went to the movies back in the day, did you worry about what time the movie started? Or did y'all we would just show up, whatever it is?
Well, I mean, it depended on the movie because, like I said,
you're right. It was always a double feature. You know where we went, and you might remember the Ritz Theater. It was probably closed when you were there, but the building was always there on Jefferson. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know because I remember us going to the movie theater where they showed a lot of the older movies, but that was kind of like on the outskirts. It wasn't like really.
Yeah, it wasn't the Ritz.
And it wasn't even. I don't even think it was even on the northwest side where TSU is. So yeah, I remember going out to the theater, but it was like a wait. But yeah, they should show older movies, and I was like, man, yeah, I got a chance to see this movie. I hadn't seen it in a long time. So
I know where you went, Mike. You were out there, and Mike I'm a native Nashvilleian, and Mike is a TSU grad. Mike, you were out at you were down on Charlotte. I forgot what the
probably so. I think I was out on Charlotte. Yeah.
Going west, but the Ritz was really close to campus.
Okay.
And Mike, you're right. They would have double features, maybe 50 cents to get in by the time. Might have been $1 by the time I was in high school. But man, to see Cooley High and Cornbread Earl, those are two of the most legendary movies. Exactly. Of course, Shaft is probably the greatest of that time.
And Coffee and all that, all those movies. But here's the thing about Cooley High, because I lived right there on the periphery of Chicago, it really meant something, to see them run through the streets under the L train and all that. You say, man, that was right here. And they filmed that right there in the Cabrini Green projects. Probably the most famous projects in the world because of Good Times and that movie Cooley High. And they got actual members of the projects that were actually in that movie. You got actual thugs that were in that movie because when they did the casting, they were just, kind of saying, we want to get some of the neighborhood guys. Well, I don't know if you call it neighborhood, but get some of the guys here right here in this project area and actually make it the movie real authentic. And you want to know what a spinoff of that movie was?
What?
What's happening?
What?
What's happening? Raj, our frat brother Raj, actually was kind of supposed to have been Preach. Remember how Preach was supposed to leave?
Right.
And but then let's show how real life it almost became. So that movie is around 74, 75, somewhere around there. Think about
it was 75.
Yeah, 9 years later, they kind of had a real life Cooley High situation when Coach Heath, of course, got killed in the movie.
Ben Wilson.
Yeah, Ben Wilson was like that in '84. And guess who's that song is so hard to say goodbye to yesterday? R. Kelly, who was actually a hooper himself, sang that at Ben Wilson's funeral.
Wow.
I know. It's crazy just how the parallels and all that in Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy how we ended up talking about movies. But
right.
But Al Adams went to North Carolina A&T.
Right, exactly.
He was an HBCU grad from A&T, played 11 years in the NBA. He was with the Warriors his whole career, but you know where he was when he was drafted, Michael?
Philadelphia.
That's right. Well, I know you would know that.
For people out there that think that the Warriors have always been in Oakland, or the story is they were in Philly first, and of course, the great Wilt Chamberlain was also in Philly, and then they migrated out here in the '60s, where a lot of teams came out here in the '60s. That the '50s and the '60s was like a big migration for sports. But that was basically east of the Mississippi River. And they started coming out here to California and other locales. And so then they were the San Francisco Warriors. And then by the time he was coaching, they had made the transition to the Golden State Warriors, which I will say again, never ever gave Oakland the great feeling of having Oakland Warriors as their name. They've never got that dignity to have that because they went from Philadelphia to San Francisco to Golden State. Never the Oakland Warriors.
Were they playing in San Francisco when they were?
No, at first they were. Even Wilt was out here when they were in San Francisco, but then when they went over to Oakland, they were like jumping around. I guess they were jumping around. I guess they played some games down in San Diego and other locales, Sacramento maybe, and they said, "Well, let's just call them the state nickname, the Golden State Warriors, because they're the only team that's named after the state's nickname."
Right.
So. Right. And then they were playing over here in the East Bay. But here's the irony of it. That 75 championship shows you how much, you have certain scenarios where other things take priority. So they weren't even able to play because they had a clean sweep against Baltimore. And it was another time where two black coaches going against each other. We had Casey Jones coaching Baltimore. Right. So, but the two games, because they swept them four in a row, and it was like a shocker. But the two games out here weren't even played in Oakland because I think they had a prior commitment at the Oakland Arena. They had to play over across the way at the Cow Palace. So even though they were in Oakland, they didn't even actually win a championship in Oakland. They had to win, across the way. So it took until I think maybe that 17 championship. I think that was the first time they actually won in Oakland.
And when Adams won his title, when they beat the Bullets, right? Yeah, they were Bullets. They beat the Detroit Pistons in the conference finals, coached by our friend Ray Scott.
Right.
Because they beat them in 7 games.
Right. And here's the thing that people want to say, well, how's that possible? Because there was a weird scenario because some of these teams that are deemed in the East or the Midwest were actually in the Western Conference. The Bucks,
right.
Bulls, and I believe Pistons were in the Western Conference. So that's why you had that. Because if you think about it, the Bucks 71 championship, that was as a Western Conference team. And then with the absorption of the 4 teams, you had the Spurs and Denver were in the Eastern Conference. So it was kind of wacky in the 70s, and then they finally got everything righted. And of course, now when they're talking about expanding with 2 more teams, it's going to be some more shifting where maybe Minnesota might end up in the East. So we'll see when they add these 2 more teams that they're talking about doing.
Hey, brother, it's all relative. USC and UCLA's in the Big Ten now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, well, hey, it don't matter where you are now. But man, big shout out to Al Addles. He was one of the pioneers, man. Of course, and think about it, you had Russell who won. He was the first black coach, and I think he won it his first year. Yeah, he
right. But he was number 2 though after Wilt. After Bill Russell. Remember, right. Bill Russell won, and then then it was Al, and then shortly thereafter it was Lenny Wilkens.
Lenny Wilkens, yeah.
And then later on, it became KC. KC had a chance to win then, but then KC ended up winning with the Celtics. Then you kind of fast forward, you get Doc Rivers. And then we got Ty Lue. Trying to think if I'm missing anybody. And we just had this last championship. That was
who won it this year?
Yeah. The coach that just won. That kind of was being ambiguous about being black, but still he won.
Missoula.
Yeah, Missoula, right. So So even though it's a predominantly black league, it's been that way for a while, we still only have a handful of black coaches that won. So that's why it's still a big deal when it happens. I know people say, "Well, we need to stop using that." I said, "No, until it's a common theme, and then we could say that." But when you still look back and say, "Man, it's still less than 10 coaches that won, and this league's is 75 years old."
Hey, let me tell you, bro. In America, black folks don't never have to apologize
Exactly.
for all the stuff we've been through, Michael,
Right.
and this stuff that's going on right now. We ain't never got to apologize for our blackness and our black pride.
Well, let me just say this though. Going back to Al. So I saw a lot of people that, like I said, like Terrence and all them that kind of grew up in that era. I see a lot of people like paying homage to Al, and then they took pictures with him and they reminiscing and all that. So my scenario with him was, the few times I was credentialed to do Warrior games, I go in there, and then especially when it was in Oakland, because since he's been in San Francisco, I think he's been kind of ill, so he hasn't been there as much. As a matter of fact, they had an Al Adams tournament over at the Chase Center, was dealing with college teams, and I wanted to run into him while I was there, but I missed him. And they said he made a brief appearance, but he's kind of been.
So he was living out that way. He's still living.
Yeah, he's out here. So he was in incognito. Yeah, he passed away in Oakland. So he was kind of incognito, and then I talked to his son, trying to get him on the show, and his son was saying that I'll see if he's feeling up to it. So it was kind of like some little messages that he might not be doing as well. Right. But my interaction with him though over in Oracle over here in the East Bay was I would go into a Warrior game. He would always say, "Brother, you look sharp." I said, "Man, thank you, coach. That means a lot to you." Of course, I wanted to say, "Man, you talking to a noob." That's why. But I didn't want to go all there. But I just said, "Thank you, coach. I appreciate that." And like I said, what happened each time I went in there. So it's probably about maybe 3, maybe 4 times. So I always said, "I love this coach. Man, he is so cool, down to earth." You get some people that won and they act aloof and act like they're untouchable. Yeah. He was real cool and always engaging with me, and I appreciated that. And I'm not one of those guys to say, "Yeah, all right, thanks. Yeah, I know." No, I said, "Man, I appreciate that, especially coming from you because you're a legend." I mean, you're in the Bay Area. I mean, brought this team their first ever championship out here in California, because all the other ones prior to that one was in Philadelphia. So,
hey Mike, I got a question for you. How often do you read the Chronicle now or the Oakland paper? Do you ever physically have one of those papers in your hand?
Well, it probably says David Steele. I mean, I used to read the Chronicle every once in a while, sometimes Oakland paper. And then we even had a couple. And
Oakland Tribune with Monty Poole. Is Monty still writing out there?
Yeah, Monty Poole's still around. Yeah, he's still around. But no, what happened is that a lot of these papers started consolidating because they had little offspring like down in Fremont. I think the Argus, and then a couple other papers that that was there. Then all of a sudden they made them like a conglomerate of like the whole East Bay. And then. Of course, you had a situation where cities had 2 newspapers, and then they would get rid of one. So Ryan Thomas, when I got out here, he was at the San Francisco Examiner, and David Steele was over at the Chronicle. Mm-hmm. Then they kind of like eliminated somewhat the Examiner, where it became more of a little smaller level offshoot, and then Ryan ended up moving down to Atlanta, where he's like I think an adjunct professor at Morehouse and other things. And then David went over to Baltimore for the Sun. So yeah, I don't read the Chronicle as much, but every once in a while I will, because I grew up against but I bump into a lot of the people who are on the Chronicle, so I might say, "Let me read your article," and blah blah blah. But yeah,
but you're reading it online though, right?
Well. Sometimes, but every once in a while, especially if it's like a big deal. Like if it's a big deal that happened because you want to have the actual paper, like when the Warriors won a championship or something like that. Because I got a Cleveland paper. My cousin sent it to me when the Cavs won. I said, "Yeah, I definitely want to have something, on print to commemorate that big event." But yeah, you're right. A lot of newspaper reading now, if it is done, it's usually online or something. Because just going to the store and buying a paper, that's kind of passe now.
Yeah, man. I'm glad I made it through there before it got so bad. I am telling you. But the sports page, they just don't carry the weight they used to because, people get their news Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and it's constantly changing. And it's just newspapers is a physical impossibility.
Right. But I guarantee, though, there will be a lot of people that got the Chronicle today is because it's probably got a great spread about Al in there. So I'm sure
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will say, man, I got to get this newspaper because it's going to probably have a great article about Al. If not today, maybe tomorrow. But, it'll be one of those, because you know how papers are out, early. And they have to play catch up a lot. Whereas it's not as immediate as online. Because, like, online, I was just kind of on Facebook. And I said, what? Because, I was running around earlier today. And then I said, wait a minute, what? I saw somebody wrote, like, I won't say a eulogy, but they were like, had a little soliloquy going on. They were talking about how much Al meant to them. I was like, wait a minute. Let me read farther down. What's happening here? And then rest in peace.
And of course, I was running around today. I didn't even realize till you.
Right. Exactly.
You text me about it. Hey, we hadn't been on, man, in a minute. Your thoughts on the Olympic Games, just the Olympics overall. Did you watch a lot of it? I was on the DL, Mike, so I'm kind of just sitting around. I'm watching stuff I would never watch.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like cheering, come on. I think it was cycling. They were going around. And I'm like, yeah, go. I would never watch that. But I watched it because it was Olympics.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the magic of the Olympics, because once every 4 years, that's that magic moment that, you actually root for your country. But we've had moments where people said, you know what? Why should we sit here and root for these Olympics when we have this? And once again, 68 Olympics, when that brought everything to light about, hey, if we boycott this, will you guys love us now? Will you say, we're going to appreciate you guys now? Remember, we had Dr. Harry Edwards on, years ago.
Yeah.
We talked about that, how impactful that would have been if the athletes said, look, we're not going to Mexico City. And then, of course, we get the raised fist. And if you ever get out here, Ricky, San Jose State has a statue. David Steele's been out here. He actually wrote a book, I guess, about that. But it's like they got the statue, and then the podium part where the Australian runner?
Did you go down there for that unveiling? Were you down?
No, I didn't go down for the unveiling, but I was down on the campus and then actually took a picture there. So I keep forgetting the Australian, the silver medalist's name.
Right.
His spot is not. His statue is not there. So a lot of people will stand on his spot and do a photo op.
Take the picture. Right.
And they're real tall statues, so it's like you're standing with avatars. So but it's a very interesting moment there. And then of course that whole track environment I was in, I told you about it years ago when I met Ronaldo and all that. Yeah. And of course those two were there.
Get Ronaldo back on the show too, man.
Oh yeah, they were there too, and they were talking about Speed City, as they called San Jose State back then. So that was the great point for the men's team. The U.S. men's team was like basically spawned from that San Jose State team, and of course the women's team was spawned from TSU. So those are the two schools that were big for USA track.
And in San Jose, they were always some cool brothers. It seems like all of them wore the dark shades when they ran. In fact, our icon, our African American athlete, our logo, the guy has shades on. It's hard to see, but he actually has shades on, which is homage to the San Jose track team. But Did you watch? Did you get a chance to watch a lot of
Oh
it?
yeah, and you know, and I was on with somebody. We were talking about the Olympics, and I said, even though basketball is my favorite sport, I almost sound like our rapper Curtis Blow on his song. Basketball is my favorite sport. I love the way the dribble goes down the court. Okay, so anyway, I said, yeah, basketball is my favorite, but when it comes to the Olympics, it's track and field. Track and field is my favorite. And, you know, and of course, I used to run. I was a hurdler, high jump, and all that. So I love when they do the 100 meters, of course. That's everybody's favorite. And then of course, the 200 and all that. But, of course, for me, it's the 110. 110 hurdles, and that's why Ronaldo Nehemiah is my favorite track athlete, even though he wasn't involved in the Olympics because of that.
They boycott.
Yeah, boycott 1980. And then, of course, amateurism in 84, where he was already in the NFL. So they was like, oh, no, you get you. And then, of course, the 84 Olympics was all about Carl Lewis. And then Carl Lewis kind of spearheaded, like, look, you guys got to treat us as professionals nowadays. So you got to thank Carl Lewis and the others for that. But, yeah, but track and field definitely is my favorite in the Olympics. And basketball, you know, too. But you think about it, even when the 84 Olympics, with Michael Jordan as the leader and Bobby Knight as the coach, it still was, it's all about Carl Lewis. Even Mary Lou Retton was like up there big for gymnastics. That's another big one, gymnastics.
Yeah. And, of course, and then 88, you had FloJo, right?
Yeah, FloJo was 88. But see, 88 was ominous for basketball because that's when they lost with the amateurs.
Right.
Then so the 92 Olympics is all about the dream team. But I still love track. Even though when they brought the NBA in, I still love track over basketball.
Track is probably my favorite in the Olympics too, and boxing. Although we must have had a terrible boxing team because I didn't see much boxing.
What? They thought boxing might not even be in the LA Olympics.
How could it be?
They might eliminate it then. And ironically, that 84 team was awesome when it was in LA.
Because of the balance of the sport or something?
No, the interest is going by the wayside, and you know maybe
UFC and all that stuff.
But it would be weird to not do it in America. I could see if we're in another country and they said, "No, we don't want boxing," but yeah, for it to be stopped. It also is supposed to be stopping the great event breakdancing.
Right.
That's not supposed to be in LA either. Which once again, something got started in the United States. And now you're gonna say, well, hey, you know, we don't really want to see.
But I want to go back to the track and field, Mike, because now with the technology and the cameras, man, you can really get a sense. Them brothers and sisters are moving out there.
Yeah.
They are moving. I just love. I love those shots when they make the turn. It is a beautiful sight.
The way they had a camera set up though, they got it like on a track. You know,
like they would do at the dog. And then that's why their camera's going so smooth.
Yep.
And everything. Yeah, that's a beautiful sight to see. And but we still got to talk about the women and the men. The women. They barely pulled it off. Gabby Williams, feet were too big, stepped on the line, tied it up. But, you know, at some point they will lose a game. That was, I think it was 60 straight when they won the gold, Mike.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, it's an astronomical number. But, for it to be that close, I mean, but to be honest,
they kept turning the ball over.
That would have tied it up. So it wasn't like they would have lost on that shot.
Right.
But it's kind of funny where, you know, they were saying, well, the USA might lose the men's team, and then some thought it was a foregone conclusion for the women. And they both end up playing against France.
Right.
The French teams being the home team. And remember what I said to you last time we were on, I said, hey, man, it's hard beating a team 3 times in a row when they had to play, what was it, Serbia 3 times? Wasn't that's who they ended up playing for the third time? And they kind of got out of there with the skin of their teeth. So then of course you're playing against the home team. So all that energy that they're gonna bring
to there was rocking. It was
exactly.
Rocking.
So now the next one, the USA has to have that. So the women's team got to say, we can't have a close call when we're playing at home. We got to blow them out. And same thing with the men. But the men won't have that big three, I don't think, next time. I don't think it's going to have Durant, Curry, and KD.
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron. So,
but, I of course, I love watching LeBron play. And I love watching him playing with all these great players around him. You could see he enjoyed that. That dude, he didn't care nothing about scoring. He was just he was leading that team, and it was easy to see to me why he was MVP. I mean, all you gotta do is look at how the guys, all these great players. I don't know. I might have talked to you or texted you about them. All these superstar players, they looking for LeBron. They looking to LeBron.
Right, but then what do we get from once again the usual haters? Oh, that should have been Steph's MVP. Yeah. Oh, Steph saved LeBron, so another person saved LeBron's legacy. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna use that analogy, if you're gonna use that, then KD saved Steph's legacy. They never even want to hear that one, but they always want to make it seem like LeBron won nothing without somebody else winning it.
It's kind of ridiculous how people hate on their brother. And for what? I mean, I mean, if you don't like the team he plays on, I get that.
Right.
But as I said many times, I hated the Celtics. But I couldn't say Larry Bird was not a great player. They were really great players. I mean, give the proper due. But that goes to show you, in my mind, I think people think that he's so close to Michael. They don't want to put nobody up there with Michael. And the thing about Michael Jordan, of course, first of all, I'll take either one of them guys on my team. But if I'm picking a team, I'm going to pick LeBron because I'm going to have him for longer and he can do more things than Michael. And that ain't taking nothing away from Michael Jordan whatsoever.
And most importantly,
6'9" that can, in his prime, he could guard every position.
And most importantly, I may get the ball.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, the analogy
you're going to definitely get the ball.
That's what I'm saying. The analogy I use is this. We're out there on the playground and you got next. Which player are you going to pick? Because if you pick Michael and Kobe, you ain't getting the ball.
You ain't getting the ball.
Sitting there like, man, I picked this team. I can't even get the ball. LeBron's going to say, hey, man, where you want the ball? And then you're going to feel like, all right, man, that's what I feel involved. Yeah. I mean, growing up, that's the thing that you hate the most is that, man, I picked a team. This cat is just straight gunning. I never touched the ball. I'll never pick him again. So,
man, we had a guy like that we played.
Oh, yeah. I remember all those playground days.
Yeah.
Like, man,
and he do want to coach everybody up.
Right. Or he'll always be on the losing team. He said, let me run, man. Let me run. As soon as that game is over, he run away and say, hey, man, let me run with you next. Like,
no, I already got mine, man.
Yeah, I already got mine. Exactly. Get out of here. The reason why you're losing every time is probably because you're shooting the ball too much.
I got mine.
Right.
Those are fun.
Right, let me just say this, though. There was a little tension amongst different athletes. Remember, Wiles made that comment about world champion of what? So now a lot of NBA people, and then it would start to get petty where people said, man, how we get Americans hoping other Americans win or lose and stuff like that? And I said, well, I don't understand what his angle was to take a shot at somebody in a different sport in a different realm to say that, well, why do they call them world champions when they only play in America? And I said, well, first of all, technically you're wrong because there's a Canadian team, so it's not only one country. Secondly, when you're in the greatest league in the world and people from all the world come to your place, of course you're going to be world champions because who are you competing against? You think a league in Europe is going to be better than the NBA, or a league in Australia or somewhere else, any other continent? So
Right.
that's why that's a kind of a flawed argument. And then
It's an idiotic. No, it's not flawed. That's an idiotic statement.
exactly. But then you turn around
and get your butt beat.
Right, barely win on a technicality in the 100, and then you get smoked in the 200. But then all of a sudden you're out with COVID. You have COVID, and then you don't even run in the relay team.
Mike, I think we did do one show.
We talked about it. Yeah, we did.
Because you were telling me that you got to get the torso across. It's not
right. Exactly right.
It's not your feet, and you got to have that lean.
Right.
You explained that to me. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we did talk about that. That's what I'm saying. But there was a couple things we didn't get a chance to because the show went by so fast. So
yeah. So
we're still on point to talk about this, but yeah, that was the big story. But then of course, like I said, you had those little inside little disagreements where, they would NBA players be texting like, hey, and I said, if the Boston players could say, hey, man, we're not only world champions in the NBA, we got the gold medal. So both of your arguments don't even work with us now because at least the three Celtics, even though Jason may be saying, hey, man, I don't even care about my gold medal.
Hey, did you see Halliburton's tweet?
Yeah.
He's had his gold medal.
Right, but then Halliburton wasn't in a situation where he's first team All-NBA and won a championship.
And that was good experience for him.
Yeah, you getting humbled like that, and then it's against the coach is the same one that beat you in their previous championship opportunity, and you played poorly. And then, of course, Jalen's totally ignored and not even brought on, even as a replacement. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Celtics come, especially when they come out here. When they come out here and play the Warriors, I'll be interested to see how they play then.
But you're right, man. In 4 years, LeBron will be 40-something. If it ain't no doubt in my mind, if he wanted to do it, he could do it. But I don't think he will.
Right.
Steph, I don't think he's going to want to do it. KD will be 38, 39. And that dude can shoot the ball. If he wanted to, he could have a role. But I heard him talking last week that, 17 years now, this is getting a little old now.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to find some new blood. I think Halliburton, this is a good experience for him. Maybe he'll be part of that next one. But, man, this is the first time I spent a lot of time watching Wembyana. I was impressed with him, Mike.
Yeah.
For one, what I like about him is he gets after you and he competes. And he's got a beautiful jump shot. His three-pointer is beautiful.
I know.
He just needs to keep getting stronger, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes. He was a really impressive player to me.
Well, then you get another player on their team that kind of got a lot of bench time. That's the Stifle Tower. So it's been a couple incidents where the Stifle Tower, even in NBA games,
the coach got into it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So you get that situation. You get what's the German player that played for the Lakers for a while. Oh man, why am I?
The German Schroeder.
Yeah, Schroeder got into it with his coach, his German coach. So yeah, it's funny how these guys playing for their own country and they get into these little tete-a-tetes. So,
but it's funny, man. Schroeder played well for Germany. Dude, why'd you play like that when you were in LA?
Well,
he played great for them in the World Games. You remember? I think he was MVP of the World Games, and he played great for them here in the Olympics. I'm like, dude, you need to do that when the Lakers needed you to do it. But anyway, I tell you, it was on a purely selfish reason. It was good to have it on where I couldn't do nothing else. At least I always had something that I could watch, and it looked like Paris was a excellent venue. You need to start working on your credentials now, Mike, for 2028. Just write
Oh
down.
yeah, absolutely. Well, not only that, the World Cup is before that. So I
Is
definitely
the World Cup in LA
yeah,
too?
World Cup is 26, and they'll be playing some of the games here in the Bay Area. So I definitely want to be a part of that. But yeah, the Olympics, it's gonna be hard. But yeah, I'm gonna try something because I mean, when it was last time here in the United States, it was right after my junior year. So we had actually won the state championship in track. And so then it was that summer before, and then also Michael got drafted. So it was like a lot of excitement around in the area. And, then Carl Lewis was the man. So then, but I wasn't eligible to be able to cover a game. I'm in high school then. So then now the next time is 44 years later. So I definitely want to, take advantage of this. And, it's been in LA. Well, I'm sorry, we missed the time. It was in Atlanta. That's right. So when I was in Atlanta, I was a media person, but I just didn't have, I guess, the gravitas to be able to hit down to Atlanta at the time because I think I was working I was working in Milwaukee, but I couldn't. Yeah, I was in Atlanta 2 years prior too, and they had the countdown clocks and everything, but I just had no real connection because my show was off, so I didn't have that basis to use that. And I was more freelancing around that time. So when you're freelancing, it's hard to get at events that huge. You got to have a huge backing to go somewhere like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, we got college football opening up, the NFL a couple of weeks away. There's a lot of classics this year. Your alma mater, TSU, is going to play Howard on October 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they opened the season with the John Mayer Classic against, who are they playing in that game? Pine Bluff. They play, Pine Bluff. They used to go, the John Mayer Classic, they play in Mississippi Valley.
Oh, you're right.
Which was a big game back in the day when Jerry Rice and Golden Tate were at TSU. They played Mississippi Valley in Nashville on the 31st. And they do play the Memphis game, which used to be a big game.
Right.
They're playing Pine Bluff.
The thing about it, though, once again, my freshman year, they played Mississippi Valley at the Circle City Classic in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
But guess what the problem was?
What?
Jerry Rice was a rookie out here in San Francisco. Oh. So I was like, man, I just missed Jerry Rice by 1 year. So and that's it. And we ended up playing them in the Circle City. Yeah.
And there was but I think I covered that game because it was a great crowd there, right?
Right.
Exactly. Like 40, 50,000 at the
that was the spot for a while, the Circle City Classic. Yeah, that really elevated Indianapolis into, especially from the black culture. And their Black Expo is big too.
Why do you think the classes kind of petered out?
Well, we were talking about the Southern Heritage, right? We played Jackson State. So
that'd be 50,000 right there.
No, Dion is the reason why that doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Because he said that we're not getting enough revenue for this, so we're going to pull out of this Southern Heritage Classic. Then he leaves. I'm like, come on, man. If you're going to do something like that grandiose, at least stick around for it. But now, all these people that are from Memphis, are from Jackson and are from Nashville, that was a big game that bring everybody together. Jackson, Mississippi, Nashville, then you meet in Memphis. So it was a big deal to have that Southern Heritage Classic. Now, here's the funny thing about that. So while I was at State, we played against Southern in Memphis. I think it was 86.
88? No, 80.
No, it was 86 because this is what happened.
That was the team that went 10-1-1, right? 86.
Right.
You're right.
Right. That was 86 because what happened is that I went with a couple buddies from Memphis down there. I said, hey, they said, hey man, you going to the Southern Heritage? Well, it wasn't called Southern Heritage. You going to game at the Liberty Bowl against we played Southern. And I said, yeah, I'll go. So we actually went over to the Lorraine Motel area. At the time, this is almost the 20th anniversary. It was like 2 years away from the 20th anniversary. So at the time, they had like a glass case over his room. Now it's like they made it into a museum.
Yeah.
But back then it was still raw, where the room had the same setting, but it was a glass case up there, and there was a real seedy area around there. So then we went to the game. We ended up having a tie with Southern.
10-10.
That was the 10-1-1. So then what happened years later, I went to Soldier Field, and this is when Dent was I think Dent was still there. And then, of course, Walter, Jackson State alum, and him and TSU alum, they said, we're going to have TSU play against Jackson State at Soldier Field. So I went down to that. And then eventually they made that into the Southern Heritage Classic. But before that, it was they didn't have any kind of setup like that, but it kind of got orchestrated when they played at Soldier Field.
But, you know, when I look at these classics now, like I got a list of some of them, and some of these just aren't interesting games. I mean, Kentucky State at Alabama A&M in the Lewis Cruz Classic. I mean, Morgan State versus Towson, the battle for Baltimore. I don't know, maybe in that area.
Exactly.
But I think you need to have only a few of the schools are able to do that. Grambling, Jackson State could do it. Of course, TSU, FAMU. It may be one other I'm not thinking about. But the big three was always Grambling, TSU, Jackson State, and Florida A&M.
Right.
And the big four.
Those would be like considered like the Power 5 schools of that level. Because remember, we were 1AA for a long while. And while I was down there, TSU was the number one percentage-wise 1AA team. And then maybe by the time I graduated, they had dropped down. Because I remember, I think Yale or somebody like that was second. So they had us in the same category with the Ivy Leagues and, you know, of course, all the HBCUs, and then, you know, some of the others.
But Mike, I don't get, you know, I think we talked about this before, but I was having a conversation the other day about this with a guy. The TSU bringing in hockey now.
Yeah.
And they got a relationship with the Predators, which will help. But if you're going to bring a sport back and you're at HBCU, I mean, black kids do play hockey. Well, come on, man. Bring back baseball.
I've been hearing people say that. I don't even know why baseball went away.
Right.
But then again, baseball also was doing the same thing, too, where you were getting people didn't fit the demographics of the school. I mean, what are you going to get? You're going to get a lot of maybe white players that didn't make it at these bigger schools. So they said, hey, you know, I can go here and get a scholarship. Then, of course, a lot of Latino players, you know, that be on these baseball teams. And so, but then you weren't getting the homegrown American black players that usually that went there. But then you open up to say, well, hey, our HBCUs have always been open to every other ethnicities. So that's the thing about it, is that's the catch-22 is like, okay, do you want the whole history of HBCUs to be kind of homogenized because we're bringing in some of these sports that are mostly at PWIs? So because you want to kind of have an open feeling that your school will get more maybe funding or something like that. So that's the thing about it, is that are you going to lose a lot of the tradition when we bring some of these sports in? That's what I'm worried about with hockey. And then, of course, even with baseball, you know, you were starting to lose it there. So the only ones that you're really going to keep is going to be football and basketball, maybe track.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point there. But you know, back then, it was still a lot of black kids playing baseball, so you really didn't have that problem. Because I was watching some of the Little League, Little League World Series going on, and I've seen very few brothers from the
Right.
young men from the
Like
U.S.
for me, I mean, and it's funny because when I was just at the All-Star game, I was talking to Lloyd McClendon. Lloyd McClendon was coaching the winning team at the HBCU game.
And you know Lloyd McClendon's our frat brother, right?
Right. But here's the other thing, though. I didn't get a chance to acknowledge him like that while he was on the dais. But he played Little League representing Gary, Indiana, right? They said that he was so awesome that even the Chinese team or other teams from China or Taipei and all that, those teams have been dominating for years, they wouldn't even pitch to him. He was like Barry Bonds. He's hit so many home runs that every time he came out the bat that they stopped pitching to him. So he got the Barry Bonds treatment, I think back in like the early 70s. And yeah, but he was representing Gary, Indiana. And then later on, I didn't get to see him play, but later on, I remember seeing a Gary Sheffield in this Tampa team with a few brothers on there. I'm like, whoa. So I said, I got to watch this. And then, of course, that Jackie Robinson team out of Chicago, which they basically ripped them off by saying, well, they had an illegal player. But watching them, that was so fun to watch.
Right.
Yeah. That predominantly black team, I think they were all black, but they won that Little League World Series, which is a rarity. And then all of a sudden you had some hating coach say, well, I think they got a player that shouldn't have been on that team. And they stripped him of that World Series.
Yeah.
I don't know if back and rewarded him, but I still got to go back and figure that out. But yeah, at the time they stripped him of that championship.
One of the disappointing things about sports today, it is the hatred. Yes. I mean, cheer for your team. Like I was talking about, man, I hated the Celtics, but I didn't hate them like that. I just didn't want them to win the game. I appreciated what those guys could do, and I was hoping the Pistons would beat them, and before that, hoping the Sixers would beat them. I was here. I covered, I guess that was LeBron's second, maybe third year. Pistons were really good, championship caliber team. I think they had already won it. And LeBron comes in. This brother is LeBron James and some guys. And they beat the Pistons because of LeBron James. And the thing about that Pistons team, they had a great defense. Mm-hmm. And LeBron scored 26 straight points on them. And I'm like, can y'all stop this dude? But at the same time, I'm saying, what this guy's doing is remarkable. I respect
2007.
Was it 2007?
2007,
right. Yeah. I mean, what he did was remarkable. You got to respect that, even though it's happening to your team, right, and you don't like it. But I think that's a part of the Twitterverse we're living in and TikTok. And I think a lot of people just want to make a name for themselves by saying some crazy stuff like Noah Lyles, right? You're a great Olympian. You ain't got to say nothing just idiotic like that.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't understand what he was trying to do. I mean, Ali, he would say stuff, but it was more related to what he was doing. He didn't go talk about some other sport like, hey, yeah, I'm a world champion in boxing, but these fools in the NBA, they're not a world champion. Like, let's put it this way. So 74, when he beat George Foreman, right? Or what if he said that, yeah, that Celtics team that won, they're not world champions. I went to Zaire, and won this championship. Sasha and won in front of all these Ali Boumbaye. So if he'd have done that, it'd have been like, come on, man. But he said, no, I'm calling George Foreman, whatever names he called him. And then, like I said, the African people over there were like behind Ali instead of Foreman. So Foreman went through a lot of emotional stuff dealing with them, like, say, hey, man, I'm black just like he is. But then again, some of that was because of what happened in the 68 Olympics. Some people still never forgave George for waving that flag around the ring when he won his boxing gold medal. And while these other brothers, John Carlos and Tommy Smith, are saying, hey, man, you got to stand up for the people back home that are getting mistreated right now in the late 60s. And then we lost Brother Martin Luther King this year. And, you know, Chicago, Detroit, all these cities are on fire because, you know, all the riots and all that. So you out here waving this flag. So then, of course, 6 years later, yeah, we don't want you to win against Ali. Ali's the man. Ali's out here protesting. Ali was in the Olympics and said, I don't even want this gold medal because of what's happening when I leave back from Rome.
I swear it feels like we just started and the hour's already up. This has been a great conversation. But quickly, I know you watched the documentary when we were Kings.
Yeah.
I just love that documentary. And one of the funny parts about it, I think it was Foreman talking. He had tired himself out, and Ali said, "George, is that all you got?"
He said, "Yep." yeah. He said,
George said, "Pretty much." Yeah. But Mike, think about those two guys in that fight. Ali just becomes this great sporting icon, and George was this brooding. And then he just transforms himself and could sell anything. He could sell a refrigerator that didn't.
But let's not forget what happened, though. It was after he had a horrible loss. I think it was Jimmy Ellis, and said that he had a encounter with Jesus, and then he became a preacher. Even though he said the preaching was great and all that, but he wasn't making any money. Then he said, I got to come back to my career. And then once somebody said to him, hey, we would like for you to help us sell this grill. And that transformed everything. George Foreman grill.
I got one sitting in my closet somewhere right now.
Yeah, we had one too. So, yeah.
Hey, man, we got to get out of here, Mike. But we didn't get to talk about it. It's just been a great conversation. We will do it again real soon. I will reach out to you and let you know what's going on for our next show. But a pleasure speaking with you, brothers. Good to be back on the air. Hope everybody out there is doing well, and we'll be back soon. For my great friend and frat brother, Mike Roberson, I'm Rick Hampton. Peace, everybody.